Question. You mentioned earlier how conspiracy theories take up a lot of energy in the left movements these days, particularly on the West Coast and with respect to the Kennedy assassination. And you said that in your view, it's a totally wasted effort. Do you really feel there's nothing at all worthwhile in that kind of inquiry? Well, let me put it in this way. Every example we find of planning decisions in the society is a case where some people get together and try to use whatever power they could draw upon to achieve a result. If you like, those are conspiracies. That means that almost everything that happens in the world is a conspiracy. If the board of directors of General Motors gets together and decides what kind of car to produce next year, that's a conspiracy. Every business decision, every editorial decision is a conspiracy. Okay, obviously that's not interesting. All decisions involve people. So the real question is, are there groupings well outside the structures of the major institutions of the society which go around them, hijack them, undermine them, pursue other courses without an institutional base, and so on and so forth? And that's a question of fact. Do significant things happen because groups or subgroups are acting in secret outside the main structures of institutional power? Well, as I look over history, I don't find much of that. I mean, there are some cases. For instance, at one point a group of Nazi generals thought of assassinating Hitler. Okay, that's a conspiracy. But things like that are real blips on the screen as far as I can see. Now, if people want to spend time studying the group of Nazi generals who decided it was time to get rid of Hitler, that's a fine topic for monograph. Maybe somebody will write a thesis about it. But we're not going to learn anything about the world from it, at least nothing that generalizes to the next case. It's all going to be historically contingent and specific. It'll show you how one particular group of people acted under particular circumstances. Fine. And if you look at the place where investigation of conspiracies has absolutely flourished, modern American history, I think what's notable is the absence of such cases. At least as I read the record, they almost never happen. I mean, occasionally you'll find something like the Reaganites with their off-the-shelf subversive and terrorist activities, but that was sort of a fringe operation. And in fact, part of the reason why a lot of it got exposed so quickly is because the institutions are simply too powerful to tolerate very much of that stuff. As far as the Pentagon goes, sure, the services will push their own interests, but typically they do it in pretty transparent ways. Or take the CIA, which is considered the source of a lot of these conspiracies. We have a ton of information about it, and as I read the information, the CIA is basically just an obedient branch of the White House. I mean, sure, the CIA has done things around the world, but as far as we know, it hasn't done anything on its own. There's very little evidence, in fact, I don't know of any, that the CIA is some kind of rogue elephant, you know, off on its own doing things. What the record shows is that the CIA is just an agency of the White House, which sometimes carries out operations for which the executive branch wants what's called plausible deniability. In other words, if something goes wrong, we don't want it to look like we did it. Those guys in the CIA did it, and we can throw some of them to the wolves if we need to. That's basically the role of the CIA, along with mostly just collection of information. It's the same with the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, all these other things that people are racing around searching for conspiracy theories about. They're nothing organizations. Of course they're there. Obviously rich people get together and talk to each other and play golf with one another and plan together. That's not a big surprise. But these conspiracy theories people are putting their energies into have virtually nothing to do with the way the institutions actually function. The Kennedy assassination cult is probably the most striking case. I mean, you have all these people doing super scholarly, intensive research and trying to find out just who talked to whom and what the exact contours were of this supposed high-level conspiracy. It's all complete nonsense. As soon as you look into the various theories, they always collapse. There's just nothing there. But in many places, the left has just fallen apart on the basis of these sheer cults. Question. There's perhaps one exception though. What about Martin Luther King's assassination? That's an interesting one. See, that's the one case where you can imagine pretty plausible reasons why people would have wanted to kill him. And I would not be in the least surprised if there in fact was a real conspiracy behind that one. Probably a high-level conspiracy. I mean, the mechanisms were there. Maybe they would have hired somebody from the mafia or something to do it, but that's conspiracy theory. It's perfectly plausible, I think. And interestingly, I'm not aware that there's been very much inquiry into it. Or if there has been, I haven't heard about it. But in the case of the one that everyone's excited about, Kennedy, I mean, nobody's even come up with a plausible reason. In fact, that's a pretty dramatic contrast, isn't it? The case of the King assassination is on its face very plausible, and the case of the Kennedy assassination on its face is extremely implausible. Yet look at the difference in treatment.